from 1977, How to Lose 5 Pounds in 3 Days. It's called the Wine and Eggs Diet, also known as the Real Housewives shopping list. The reason you lose so much weight so fast is that you have to get rid of your liver. You have to...
I am already drunk.
This is the crash diet. Don't have the energy to do anything. I'm back on the toilet. This is so bad.
Here we are again. Another New Year's Eve spent on my own. This is just starting to get a little sad. I could download the apps again, but that would just depress me. I really feel like I need to get back to analog dating. I gotta make some changes in my life, and they have to involve less connectivity, fewer devices. I need to refresh and revamp my entire situation. Hey, Alexa?
How can I help you?
Can you link me to some advice on how to be a bad bitch, but like, in an old-fashioned kind of way?
Working on it.
Oh, that was fast. Huh. Well, it's a new year, opportune for a new me, and like the Generation Z has been saying on their TikToks, old is new again. So, what a perfect time to follow this 63-year-old lifestyle and dating advice. Hi, I'm Hoots. This is my channel. And for an indeterminate amount of time, I will be following the advice from Helen Gurley Brown's seminal work, Sex and the Single Girl, up to and including doing that gross wine and egg diet that goes viral every few years. New year, new channel, baby. Buckle the fuck up. For the first time at 37, I got the man I wanted. It could be construed as something of a miracle considering how old I was and how eligible he was. I am not beautiful or even pretty. I once had the world's worst case of acne. I am not bosomy or brilliant. I grew up in a small town. I didn't go to college. My family was and is desperately poor, and I've always helped support them. I am an introvert, and I am sometimes mean and cranky, but I don't think it's a miracle that I married my husband. I think I deserved him. And when he finally walked into my life, was just worldly enough, relaxed enough, financially secure enough, for I also worked very hard at my job, and donned with enough glitter to attract him. Helen Gurley Brown clawed her way up from her humble roots in Depression-era Arkansas to become one of the highest-paid female editors in the publishing industry, due in no small part to the success of her salacious 1962 how-to manual, Sex and the Single Girl. Sex and the Single Girl. Helen Gurley's life as a single girl began as a lowly secretary in the late 1940s, eventually working her way up to advertising copywriter after one of her employers recognized her skill as a writer. In 1959, at the age of 37, she married film producer David Brown, who produced critical and commercial hits like The Sting and Jaws, and who encouraged Helen when she had the idea to write a book. Following the success of Sex and the Single Girl, Helen Gurley Brown would take over the position of editor-in-chief at Cosmopolitan magazine, a position she'd hold until the late 1990s. So if you've ever wondered why Cosmo is like that, Helen Gurley Brown is the answer. She's why. At a time when a woman was expected to reject sex until marriage, at which point she would drop all of her other ambitions in order to become a full-time homemaker and mother, Helen Gurley Brown asserted that women were naturally as ambitious and as sexually driven as men. Theoretically, a nice single woman has no sex life. What nonsense! She has a better sex life than most of her married friends. She need never be bored with one man per lifetime. Her choice of partners is endless, and they seek her. They never come to her bed duty-bound. Her married friends refer to her pursuers as wolves, but actually, many of them turn out to be lambs to be shorn and worn by her. In the opening chapters of Sex and the Single Girl, Brown outlines her theory of love and relationships. Enjoy your freedom while you can, date as many men as you can, and marry late, if at all. I think marriage is insurance for the worst years of your life. During your best years, you don't need a husband. You do need a man, of course, every step of the way, and they're often cheaper emotionally and a lot more fun by the dozen. Equal parts frivolous and liberating, Sex and the Single Girl heralded both the start of the sexual revolution and second-wave feminism, predating Betty Friedan's The Feminine Mystique by a year. The comparison between Brown and Friedan is a ubiquitous one. Both were responding to the same post-war dissatisfaction that settled onto women like a fog, as Friedan called it, the problem that has no name, and the elusive and restrictive cultural norms that dictated women and femininity, the eponymous Feminine Mystique. Both were speaking to a presumed audience of mostly white women, Friedan, the college-educated middle-class housewife, and Brown, the working-class secretary. Both campaigned on behalf of the ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment, and both, to different extents and in slightly different ways, championed women's self-actualization through a meaningful career. And that's about where their similarities end. Through The Feminine Mystique, Friedan was hotly critical of the capitalism and hyperconsumption that she saw as driving the infantilization and stagnation of women as a group. Brown, by contrast, was a lifelong libertarian feminist who liked stuff and things. While Helen Gurley Brown often publicly sang Betty Friedan's praises, Friedan was not as big of a fan of Brown. The sex-positive feminism Brown advocated, invented, something that would come to be associated far more with third-wave feminism in the 1990s, was viewed as little more than turning oneself into a sex object for male pleasure by Friedan and many of her second-wave feminist counterparts. Friedan would also infamously come to loudly distrust lesbians in the movement, nicknaming them the Lavender Menace, whereas Brown had a much more sympathetic view of queer women. Even in Sex and the Single Girl, to them, she writes, "You've already worked out a way of life for yourself to which I could contribute no helpful advice. I'm sure your problems are many. I don't know about your pleasures. At any rate, it's your business, and I think it's a shame you should have to be so surreptitious about your choice of a way of life." In a sequel to Sex and the Single Girl, titled Sex and the Office, Brown had even allegedly drafted several chapters about abortion and homosexuality that ended up being excised by her editor, including one case study describing a sexual liaison between two women in lurid detail. And while Friedan saw her work as an early step in the movement to dismantle the feminine mystique, and by extension, patriarchy, Brown considering herself both a feminist and a realist, chose more often than not merely to offer her readers advice on how to exploit the inequitable system to their best advantage. Here's my rule. Never go Dutch with a date unless he can't even pay his rent. And are you sure you want him? Or it's a project you promoted that he hates, like the ballet. She saw men giving expensive gifts, money, meals, and booze to women as almost a sort of reparations in a gender-imbalanced society, but was in no hurry to give up these small tokens in exchange for more equity in that society. Basically, both Helen Gurley Brown and Betty Friedan were fascinating and frustrating women, each with their fair share of dubs and L's. I could honestly go on for hours about both of them, but you'll have to wait for their respective Respect the Dead episodes for that. I do feel like Betty Friedan is taken much more seriously than Helen Gurley Brown, and part of that is definitely because The Feminine Mystique is a work of a bit more academic rigor than Brown's body of work. It's also just aesthetically a more serious work, where Brown's prose is pedestrian, Friedan's is profound. But I also feel like a massive reason Helen Gurley Brown's legacy isn't respected in the same way as Betty Friedan's is because people just don't want to take a girly girl seriously. And I think that's unfortunate because I think it can be argued that Brown's impact was much deeper. Throughout her publishing career, for better or for worse, Brown arguably had a wider and more substantial reach, both in terms of audience and years active. So, goofy framing device meant to justify why I'm doing a clickbaity diet challenge aside, I think it's valuable to actively engage with her work. Helen Gurley Brown always identified as a mouse burger, a term she invented to mean a young woman of unexceptional appearance and talents regarded as timid, dowdy, or mousy. Sex and the Single Girl was written to appeal to all single girls, but it was directed most pointedly at the 30-something mouse burgers that Brown viewed as younger versions of herself. Brown's advice in Sex and the Single Girl promised that a mouse burger could not just blossom into the kind of fascinating vixen that men desire in a potential spouse, but evolve into the sort of confident, self-actualized single girl who might never want or need to get married in the first place. Okay, I'll bite. How do I go from single girl, lowercase, to single girl, proper noun? Hey, single girl, do you get 400 spam likely calls a day? Are you afraid of your personal information being leaked to bad actors on websites? Wow. I can't believe Helen Gurley Brown predicted websites all the way back in 1962. Maybe this is from a reprint. Hang on, it says here that your information is being sold and published online by hundreds of data brokers? Oh my goodness, that's worrying. The good news is you have the right to protect your privacy and request data brokers on websites like Been Verified remove your personal information. The bad news is that there are so many of them that doing it manually is a process that can take years. Luckily, there's today's sponsor, Incogni. Incogni automatically reaches out to data brokers on your behalf, and since many data brokers continue collecting your information even after they've removed it once, Incogni conducts repeated removal requests to ensure that your data stays off the market. The second I signed up for my Incogni account, they submitted 148 removal requests, many of which were honored immediately, and they've continued to submit requests on my behalf. If you're concerned about your privacy or even just annoyed with a constant stream of spam and robocallers, Incogni can help you finally get some peace. Now, here's the really good news. Incogni is giving my viewers 60% off of their annual plan just by using my link in the description and entering the code HOOTS at checkout. That's a full year of protection at 60% off by going to incogni.com/hoots and entering code HOOTS at checkout. Protect your data and sign up for Incogni today. Thank you to Incogni for sponsoring this video. If you'd like to see ad-free versions of this and all of my videos, head on over to patreon.com/littlehoot and become a patron today. There is a catch to achieving single bliss. You have to work like a son of a bitch. What you do have to do is work with the raw material you have, namely you, and never let up. You don't have to do anything brassy or show-offy or against your nature. You do need a quiet, private, personal aggression, a refusal to take singleness lying down.
There's nothing wrong with being alone. I like having my privacy. It's kind of a privilege getting to hog all the pillows on my bed or spend as long as I want in the bath without anyone rushing me. To say nothing of the joys of getting to shamelessly strut around the house doing truly embarrassing things you'd never want another soul to see you doing, like picking your nose or plucking your chin hairs or filming a YouTube video. But it still gets lonely. Sometimes even lonely enough I'd consider sharing my space with someone. I could buy more pillows. I could wait until he's away working a grueling shift at the mud factory or whatever it is that men do to set up my camera and my teleprompter. But how does one even become a stay-at-home YouTuber for a mud factoryman?
You must develop style. Every girl has one. It's just a case of getting it out in the open, caring for it, and feeding it like an orchid until it leafs out. Brains are an asset, but it doesn't take brainy brains like a nuclear physicist's.
I've often been told that I have amazing style, and that I'm stupid, so that works out.
Whatever it is that keeps you from saying anything unkind and keeps you asking bright questions, even when you don't quite understand the answers, will do nicely. A lively interest in people and things, even if you aren't that interested, is why bosses trust you with new assignments, why men talk to you at parties, and sometimes ask you out to dinner.
Actually, not getting fired keeps me from saying anything unkind to my boss. And men talk to me at parties because I'm drunk and hot, but I guess lying never hurt anyone.
Fashion is your powerful ally. Let the secure married girls eschew shortening their skirts, or lengthening them, and wear their classic cashmeres and tweeds until everybody could throw up. You be the girl other girls look at to see what America has copied from Paris.
Well, I do have a lot of pretty clothes, but what we will not be doing on this channel is promoting the French. I've had just about enough of those sorts of people.
You need an apartment alone, even if it's over a garage.
Check on the apartment front. I'd love to have one over a garage, but I'm not made of money. Besides, this is LA, baby. You think I haven't already been on a waiting list for one of those garage apartments for the last 9 years? Until then, I'm gonna have to keep having to move my car for street sweeping.
Your figure can't harbor an ounce of baby fat. It never looked good on anybody but babies.
Doing a temperature check here. What about grown lady fat?
You must cook well. It will serve you faithfully.
Check.
You must have a job that interests you, at which you work hard.
I'm literally a fucking YouTuber. Check. And I hope I didn't just get lipstick on my teeth.
I say must about all these things as though you were under orders. You don't have to do anything. I'm just telling you what worked for me. I'm sure of this. You're not too fat, too thin, too tall, too small, too dumb, or too myopic to have married women gazing at you wistfully.
Wait, am I doing this for men or is this for the girls? What is the end goal here?
This, then, is not a study on how to get married, but how to stay single in superlative style.
Oh, okay, cool. Phew, that's a relief. I thought I was gonna have a wedding or something at the conclusion of this video, and while all the men I just proposed to at the gas station said yes, most of them were probably serial killers. But now that the wedding is off, that brings down my video budget by, at least half. The wig was $12,000. His wig, I mean. The groom's wig. So, where do we begin?
really is important to surround yourself with men every day to keep up your morale.
Helen Gurley Brown suggests making a list of all the men you know. Not just marriageable men, all men. Fathers, uncles, brothers, cousins, your tax guy, your doctor, your friend's husbands, the guy who has to type in his employee code at the self-checkout because the little bundle of mint you bought isn't heavy enough to tip the scale in the bagging section, even the high school boy who delivers your paper, which I personally think is one of the strongest cases for the death of physical media. Even if it's meant in innocence, I just don't think single childless women in their 30s should have lists with the names of high school boys on them, Helen. Helen, once you've completed your creepy little list, Helen says you should sort them into the following categories. Eligibles. Men who you could see yourself marrying. They're single, decent looking, and you could introduce them to your existing friend group without any need for intervention. You may not have any chemistry with them yet, but these are men that fall firmly into the realm of dating possibility, and there likely aren't many of them.
I'd say you meet 2 in a good year.
Eligibles, but they give you the ick. These men are technically available, but you are not and will never be interested in them. The creeps, the weirdos, what the hell are they doing here? Yeah!
The numbers in this crowd are legion. You could meet 3 in a week.
The fuck boys. While they're not marriage material, Helen Gurley Brown recognizes the fuck boy, or Don Juan as she calls him, as a sacred rite of female passage, however miserable it may make us.
One of the great sadnesses of a relationship with a Don Juan is that you lose so much self-respect. It's not only that he doesn't want to get married, it's that you know all the time he is unworthy of you, ruthless and sadistic in his boyish way, but you are too hooked to do anything about it.
There's really no point in warning a woman away from this kind of man. She just needs to get him out of her system.
You can be forewarned about a Don Juan and walk right into his trap like a sleepwalker, because one of his skills is making you feel you're different from all other girls. Advising a girl already in the clutches of a Don Juan is like talking to a zombie. She can't hear you. You might as well try to stop a launched missile as try to break up the affair. And it will end one of 2 ways. He will get tired and mosey on to his next prey, or his prey will tire of his subtle torture and flee. It may even require several fleeings, but finally, one of them will take.
The married man. Okay, so one of the most notorious things about this book, and Helen Gurley Brown in general, is that she not only condones, but encourages you to engage in men's extramarital affairs.
Are married men off limits? Not always. Same downside and upside, trials and rewards as ever. Pluses, good sex, admiration, even adoration from him. We're not talking about outright being kept, but delicious prezzies and trips are often in his portfolio. The married man is rarely a good marriage prospect, of course, already having a wife he isn't eager to discard. I've always felt and said, however, that a married man is okay for occasional use. The word use not seen as a pejorative. I think useful is a good thing for all of us to be.
She takes care to list some of the cons of having a dalliance with a married man, not the least of which are the facts that he'll likely never get divorced and you may fall in love with him and suffer. But she also produces a list of 7 reasons why carrying on an affair with a married man is great, actually.
Number 1, he can be your devoted slave and remain faithful to you for years. Number 2, he will love you more passionately than the woman he married and prefer your company to hers. Number 3, he will spoon-feed you the praise and appreciation you rarely get from the single fellow, who thinks telling you that you have pretty eyes might be construed as a proposal of marriage. Number 4, he is often generous with gifts and money. If he isn't, you can explain the economic facts of life. Number 5, any married man on expense account is the greatest date since Diamond Jim Brady. He will take you to the best restaurants, the best nightclubs, order the best champagne. Number 6, He will give you sound advice about your job, insurance, investments, and even about getting along with your family and other men. Number 7. He is frequently marvelous in bed and careful not to get you pregnant. It seems to me the solution is not to rule out married men, but to keep them as pets. While they're using you to varnish their egos, you use them to add spice to your life. I say them advisedly. One married man is dangerous. A potpourri can be fun.
Now, many in my audience would be quick to point out that in the enlightened year of 2025, you can, in fact, get a married man that comes with all of these benefits and who is in an open relationship and not, in fact, cheating on his wife. And if you wonder if Helen Gurley Brown ever spares a thought for said wife, well,
no, I don't want adultery in my own marriage, and some people think I'm a lunatic and immoral to suggest a married man can, in his way, accommodate or enhance the life of a single woman. But it seems to me faithfulness is the responsibility of the married woman. If she wants him unshared and unstrayed, lots of things she can do, not what this book is about. A womanizer doesn't often change stripes or spots. A cheated-on wife might just avoid marrying him in the first place.
As for me, Hoots lore drop alert, I've been the other woman before, and that's a path I'm not interested in retreading. So I'm just gonna cross this little section off my list and put it down as time served.
Gay men! After all the studies and research, we still don't know why they are. Do we nature or nurture? And why didn't we become lesbians?
Why didn't we, Helen? Questions I ask myself every damn day.
Before you rule homosexual men out of your life, however, let's consider, are they really monsters? Some very famous and beautiful women are married to them. While you turn up your nose at homosexuals, a lot of other homosexuals, undeclared, whom you don't criticize because they're married and baseball-oriented, are running around loose. I suspect a bunch in one of my former offices. They ate together every noon, told bawdy stories to each other, drank en masse at 5 o'clock, and whistled at waitresses. They seemed to be as masculine as the Neanderthal man in the forest primeval. But how come you never saw them with a girl? If you ask me, they were less masculine than the slender, reedy fellow who does a fantastic mambo and prefers my company to a man's. If you still ask me, they were making a tremendous show of their maleness because they had some creeping doubt about it themselves.
Not this bitch subtweeting Alex Stardew Valley. As for out gays, Helen recommends you keep them around because they make the best friends.
They will sit by your bed when you have a strep throat while your other beau and girlfriends are out watching Santa Claus Lane Parade or some damn nonsense.
Who are these ladies' friends? Why does she have such shit friends? Well, not enough gays, clearly. Despite being happily married to a divorcee, Helen Gurley Brown considers a man going through or just coming off of a divorce to be a waste of time for the single girl. She is likely to spend all of her time taking care of him and easing him through the transition period, after which he's more likely to turn around and decide it's time to sow his wild oats rather than settle down permanently with another woman. This is also well-trod territory for me, and I'm with Ms. Gurley Brown here. Avoid, avoid, avoid. Helen tells the single girl not to discount the younger man and reports that she personally knows of 4 happy marriages resulting in pairings where the groom is between 2 and 8 years younger than his bride. I kind of think 2 or 3 years difference in partners is basically the same age, but okay. I personally prefer being the younger party, but I have dated people up to 6 years younger than me, so I guess I'm not leaving the younger names off the list, but I'm not happy about it. So I have my pathetic little list, but it looks like I really need to add to it. Where do I find more men? Well, obviously the first place Helen Gurley Brown recommends is at your job. The first love of her life was always work. So if there was going to be a place to meet the second love of her life, it would also be work. Following that, she recommends the classics: friends of friends, blind dates. Nowadays, we're most likely to get those through the apps. Bars, parties, your local DSA branch, etc., etc. She recommends that you carry around pieces of controversial literature in order to spark conversation.
Carry a controversial book at all times, like Karl Marx's Das Kapital or Lady Chatterley's Lover.
I love that she came up with a better version of peacocking like 3 decades before Neil Strauss. Like, you don't have to wear a top hat to the grocery store, you silly goose. Just carry around a bunch of Stalin's poetry with a bunch of random page markers until someone asks you what you're reading. And then you can respond, I'm not actually reading it, this is just my comfort Soviet anthology, and talk about something else that interests you both. But some of her suggestions are a bit more out there. She recommends that even the least athletic single girl take up a sport, because men like sports, and where there are sports, there are men. And listen, I'm actually a little sporty, and I'm part of a running club and everything. Not gonna tell you which one because I don't want to dox myself on camera, but I just feel like telling women uninterested in athletics to get into sports in order to get a man is just a prelude to Amy Dunn's cool girl speech in Gone Girl. Hobbies are good. Meeting people you share hobbies with is good. But I just feel like trying to force yourself to do a hobby you actively disdain in order to land a husband is just a way of ensuring you'll actively disdain your husband. But sure, I'll start talking to some of the men in the run group more, I guess. And then she makes this absolutely bizarre recommendation.
A friend tells me a friend of hers plucked herself a steady beau and subsequent husband from AA. She was about 43, had no drinking problem of her own, but since outsiders are permitted to attend AA meetings, presumably to do research or because they have a problem person at home, she wandered into the Beverly Hills chapter meeting, sat next to a famous writer, and bagged him within the year. Seems almost ghoulish, doesn't it? I suppose a man would be very susceptible to a woman he met under these circumstances, one who understood and accepted his most serious problem. If you are going to try this approach to men, I suggest you pick a wealthy chapter of AA. Might as well start with a solvent problem child, like, say, someone with liquid assets.
Oh my God, Helen. Yes, it does seem ghoulish. That's downright sinister. That friend of your friend is very fucking weird. Or hopefully was very fucking weird in 1962, and now she's dead and rotting in hell. People in recovery are encouraged not to get right into relationships for a reason. Also, what do you think? I'm gonna spend the rest of my life drinking 0% ABV beers with a man just because he's in recovery? I think the fuck not, Helen. I will stay single. I will remain a single girl forever. I will get me one of those homosexual husbands, and we will be happy together, sipping Mai Tais on the beach and stealing one another's boyfriends for the remainders of our days until we slip peacefully into eternity together, holding hands from our twin hospital beds. I need another drink.
Being sexy means that you accept yourself as a woman, with all the functions of a woman. You like to make love, have babies, nurse them, and mother them, or think you would. Being sexy means that you accept all the parts of your body as worthy and lovable. Your reproductive organs, your breasts, your alimentary tract. You even welcome menstruation as the abiding proof of your fertility.
Okay, all the fertility stuff is a little weird, but I'm loving this whole move towards self-love and body positivity. That's not an intestinal disruption, actually. I'm just a beautiful fucking woman, and my colon is snatched to the gods.
What is a sexy woman? Very simple. She is a woman who enjoys sex. Why are some women sexier than others? Well, the truth is, everybody starts out sexy, or with terrific potential. A 16-month-old baby girl is the prototype of sexiness. Watch her play peekaboo, wiggle her lovely fanny, or turn to give you a last melting look before wriggling off to bed. All her growing up years, she will be exhorted to keep her dress down, her knees crossed, her thoughts pure, never to let anybody touch her there, never to touch herself, and to protect that part of her body as though it were a precious jade. One fine day, she will want to unlock her chastity belt, and she won't be able to find the key. People have been hiding the key from her since she was a tiny baby.
Sexiness for Helen Gurley Brown is, at its root, the ability to undo this repressive social conditioning and to be able to enjoy sex freely and without shame. But sex for Helen is not just intercourse. It's this whole seductive dance we do, not just with current or potential intimate partners, but with the other men and some women who occupy the various spheres of your social world. It's flirting, it's friendship, it's intimacy. And her first rule for being sexy is just to find that inner sexiness. Her next suggestion is just to, I guess, appeal to people's types. She recalls men who preferred women who resembled their mothers or former school teachers. Gravitate to a man who gravitates towards you, you know?
A girl can pre-select too. I know a girl who was seduced by her uncle at age 10.
Call the police.
He was only 14.
Call the child police.
Though it was a shocking experience and he was packed off to military school, she now goes only for men who look and act like him. When you meet the man who fulfills your pre-selected needs and you his, it's no wonder a giant staple remover couldn't get the two of you apart.
Okay, so for my purposes, I'm casting my net for guys who look like dad bod Colin Farrell as seen in Yorgos Lanthimos' The Lobster, who are themselves looking for girls who look like third-rate Bryce Dallas Howard impersonators. How hard can that be? Helen then does us the critical service of listing some things that are sexy and not sexy. Things that are sexy: clean hair, lots of hair, lovely lingerie, being able to sit still, smiles, being seen without makeup, provided it's not in public and your hair still looks good, being seen in bed, clothes that fit, skin-tight shirts and sweaters, being delighted to be called on the telephone. Couldn't be me. If you call me, I am not picking up. Perfume is sexy. Expensive perfume is even sexier.
Douse the perfume on a cotton, put another piece of dry cotton in front of it, and tuck it inside your bra.
Good health is sexy.
A black dress is sexy. The black dress. The dress you paid more for than you should, but every time you wear it, you feel bitchy and beautiful.
And of course,
liking men is sexy. It is, by and large, just about the sexiest thing you can do. Some girls hate men because they secretly envy their superior advantages, their jobs, their ability to exploit. Haven't they ever seen some poor drone paying $1,000 a month alimony to the girl he was married to only a year? Man-haters may secretly envy men's penises. If you sustain any of these hates, you need help, probably professional, to find out how much nicer it is to be a woman.
Oh my God, MRA icon Helen Gurley Brown. Things that are unsexy. Skimpy little hairstyles, food in your teeth, bitten fingernails, borrowing money, jitters, baggy stockings, flesh not secured firmly to the bone, hair under your arms, on your legs, and around your nipples. So I'm to understand that my womanly digestive tract is sexy and beautiful and I should love it, but my body hair is as gross and unseemly as any Lady Gillette ad would lead me to believe. Girdles are unsexy, though Helen concedes sometimes necessary. Talking about your family or your boss or really anything too much is unsexy.
Sphinxes and Mona Lisas knew what they were doing.
And don't underestimate the importance of body language. Ah!
Gossip, weirdly, is not sexy. According to Helen Gurley Brown, gossip can be hot if you're talking about how cool and interesting all of your friends are, but not if you're like spilling state secrets or making fun of your bestie. And Listen, Helen, maybe your friends were super fascinating in the swingin' 60s, but any interesting gossip about my friends usually centers around getting into some online beef with some semi-anonymous Twitter personality with like 50,000 followers. And the climax of the story involves making them look a little foolish with my totally epic-based dunk in the quote tweets. And I'm gonna be so real with you, Helen. I'm not really interested in the kind of man who's going to be interested in, much less encourage that kind of behavior from me or mine. Where is the offline, soft-bellied mustache Colin Farrell of my dreams? Well, I guess I gotta get out in the world and meet him and practice all this being sexy stuff.
A sexy girl knows how to flirt. The deep-down sexy one may not flirt as much as the pseudo-sexy one, but it's handy knowledge. Maybe you think you can't flirt. You think it means dropping your hanky or giving a long, slow wink, followed by a sideward jerk of the head to indicate, "Meet you out in the hall, honey." Flirting is mostly just looking. Ready for a quick flirting lesson? Select a man at a nearby restaurant table. Somebody in the dentist's anteroom will do just as well. Place isn't important. Spotted him? Look straight into his eyes, deep and searchingly. Then lower your gaze. Go back to your companions or magazine. Now look at him again the same way, steadfastly, questioningly. Then drop your eyes. Do it 3 times, and you're a flirt. P.S. You will have made him very happy. Want to flirt some more? A man is talking to you, nothing very personal. Look into his eyes as though tomorrow's daily double winners were there. Never let your eyes leave his. Concentrate on his left eye, then the right. Now deep into both. Smooth operators never take their eyes off a man, even when a waiter spills a tray of drinks. This look has been referred to rather disdainfully as hanging on his every word.
I like it. It's kind of fun.
I'm sorry. Did you know that your right pupil is bigger than your left pupil?
No, I didn't know that.
But suppose you're nice to a guy, lighting up and sewing on buttons and all that, and one day you say to yourself, enough is enough, and you pop the question, will he be your date for a cocktail party Saturday night? No, he says. Just plain no. Hate, kill, a pox on him and everybody under his zodiac sign. Do you know what that means? It means you didn't really like him for himself in the first place, but were just being friendly because you wanted something. How do you feel when he's nice to you only because he wants to sleep with you? Or needs a cosigner at the bank?
You heard it here first, folks. Helen Gurley Brown says the friend zone is not real.
If you would like to seem a little softer and less self-sufficient, go on a helpless campaign. Let a man push open every door. Stand pat. He'll do it and love it. Sit on your side of the car until he comes around to open the door.
Okay, here I am. I've just gotten home from the grocery store, and I'm gonna wait for a man to come and let me out of my car.
He may be halfway down the block before he realizes you aren't with him, but he'll be back, complaining, but content. Have difficulty with packages. Expect to have your cigarette lighted. Now we're coming down to the home stretch on how to be sexy. Get it straight in your head that anyone who wants to kiss you or sleep with you isn't handing you a mortal insult, but paying you a compliment. Oh, I know, some men proffer their kisses and propositions with all the finesse of an invading army. It's hard to keep your temper, but cold heroines went out with cold showers.
Hey! Nice ass!
Thank you.
Wanna fuck?
Oh, no, thank you. I do appreciate the compliment, but I will be passing on that.
Come on, get over here!
Oh my gosh. Oh my god.
Lodged in your pretty head somewhere is the image of how you'd like to appear to your public. You're a sophisticated gamine, a creamy and elegant princess. You're Tweety, sexy, Grecian, a bird of paradise, or any of 20 other fascinating creatures.
Helen Gurley Brown's fashion advice, much like a lot of her advice, can basically be boiled down to you do you, but be the absolute best at doing you. And she encourages women not to listen to what men have to say about their wardrobe. While some men do have good taste, she insists that most do not know how to dress a woman or in what context certain fashion is appropriate, telling a story about her husband asking her to wear his favorite slinky black dress for what turned out to be a pool party. She gives no hard and fast rules for fashion, but the aforementioned slinky black dress and something pink and cotton for the summertime are her recommended staples. And I have plenty of both.
But a far more important rule for man-pleasing, to my way of thinking, is dress to please yourself. If you do it with exquisite taste, you'll be amazed how few men or anybody else will try to change your stripes for polka dots.
Now, I personally think I have good taste, when I'm not intentionally trying to dress like a mid-century drag queen. I dress down for YouTube on account of the perverts, but I have many beautiful pieces, and glamorous is a superlative that has been assigned to me on a number of occasions. I've had an innate sense of looking good since I was like a preteen. But for the girlies following along at home, Helen, how does one develop good taste? Helen, how does one develop good taste, Helen? Tell me, Helen. I'm fucking stupid. This is what I do for my job. Well, one of my jobs.
Number 1, count the fashion magazines, Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, Glamour, as friends. Within their pages, you will see the best photography, the best clothes, the best looks of our time, assembled with loving care by people whose profession and sole aim it is to show you what's beautiful. Number 2, do follow fashion. Nobody is asking you to give up your beloved shirtwaist, but get it at the length skirts are this year. Wear it with a totally new shade of sweater and lipstick. The obsolescence factor is exaggerated by the grumps, I feel. Each new crop of styles usually looks fine for years, up to and including the much-maligned sack dress if you will go to the pains to remodel. I have thrown out only one dress in the last 10 years because fashion said out, and it was never pretty to begin with.
R.I.P. Helen Gurley Brown. You would have hated Sheen.
Number 3. Re-examine the dictum, wear only what's best for your figure forever and ever, never mind what fashion is decreeing. If you have potato puff hips and a large stomach, it's true you'd better stick with your best style, which is undoubtedly a tent. But if you have a young body, there is practically no new fashion you can't embrace some version of. And that's the truth. Why miss out on this very female kind of fun? Number 4. Copycat a mentor with better taste than yours. Someone like this can inspire you and keep you on track. Number 5. Don't just admire. Study beautifully gowned women. Figure out why a particular stunner knocks you out. Is it her hair, her cyclamen matte jersey dress, everyone else is in black, her pin, a huge white cameo? It's everything. Make notes.
Just as an aside, in another part of the book, Helen is describing a couple of women she worked with who she felt dressed themselves beautifully and always looked sexy. And she described them as perfect ladies with a sixth sense about clothes. A sixth sense. I love this bitch.
Number 6. Listen when people tell you something is wrong. You may even listen to men. Most friends are extremely tactful, and your plastic spring-a-later pumps must really be getting on their nerves if they bring the subject up. Families are something else, and sometimes seem to be trying to asphyxiate your image instead of improve it. When they criticize, check a second source. Number 7. Get acquainted with good clothes, even if you can't afford them. It will teach you what to look for in cheaper ones. Number 8. Study the best store windows. Gape, gaze, and drink in. Number 9. attend good fashion shows, and gape and gaze some more.
Marie Kondo style, Helen Gurley Brown urges you not to buy a single thing to add to your wardrobe unless you absolutely love it. Never buy something because you feel like you should or because it's cheap. She also recommends that you pay the most for the clothes you'll wear the most and not buy shit that takes forever to iron unless you plan on ironing them every time. And learn to sew if you can so that you can make your own alterations and even your own clothes. Honestly, Helen Gurley Brown's fashion advice has aged the best of everything in this book. It is antithetical to the fast fashion we've come to embrace over the last half century, while still embracing fashion itself as a worthwhile hobby. And rather than subscribing to any kind of maxim like Coco Chanel's look in the mirror and remove one accessory, Helen Gurley Brown pushes the idea that whether your personal style is elegant and understated or flamboyant and over the top, there is a way to wear it and wear it well. And fashion is just the art of discovering that personal style. I love it. It's dope, it's based, it's rizzed out, it's skibbity, and it's utterly useless to me because I already know how to dress myself. But I hope one of my besties watching at home found it useful.
Roommates are for sorority girls. You need an apartment alone, even if it's over a garage.
Luckily, I'm way ahead of Helen here. I don't know about sorority girls, but I do kind of believe that all single adults over the age of 25 should be able to live in a place of their own without having roommates, if that is what they prefer to do. Unfortunately, wages have stagnated since 1962, and landlords just won't stop raising the rent. Now, I found a way to afford this aspect of the single girl lifestyle by taking over the lease from someone who took over the lease from someone else on a studio apartment in a rent-controlled area of my city. That means my landlord can only raise the rent by a certain percentage each year, and it also means that I sleep in my living room, and that if anyone asks, I don't technically live here, but I've been house-sitting for the previous tenant while he's been away working on a cruise ship contract for the last 5 years. Fuck, that's a good martini. Our single girl guru recommends living not too far from work and ideally near whatever man you're courting if you've got your eye on someone. I had no control over either of those things because, again, I just happened to snap up someone else's lease. But luckily, I'm not too far away from work, and I always make the man that I'm seeing travel to me anyway, so I don't really have to worry about wasting my time commuting for a booty call. To Helen Gurley Brown, the apartment, like the wardrobe, is an important expression of the single girl's style and personality.
When your name comes up in conversation, people will say with far more glowing admiration, "That girl has the most divine apartment," than they will ever say, "That girl has the most divine husband."
She encourages the single girl to decorate her apartment chicly and elegantly, but to her taste.
Think of yourself as a star sapphire. Your apartment is your setting.
But then she kind of shits on what she calls
the Greenwich Village approach. Make everything gay and colorful and warm and cozy, and no single item of furniture or refurbishing costs more than $10.
Which is kind of exactly what I've done with my place. I mean, I have plenty of furniture that costs more than $10 in 1962 money, a little over $100 in today's money, but colorful and cozy was kind of the vibe I was going for with this place. I think I sort of got it into my head that if I bought a bunch of bright, mismatched pieces, that I would achieve a kind of eclectic vibe that would give a small space some charm and character, and I don't know. If given the space and budget, I'd probably redecorate a little bit. If I didn't have to have my home office and my entertainment center and my bed all in the same room, I'd probably try to be a bit more deliberate with my home decor, but you can take my cozy pink couch and my hot pink upholstered chairs from my cold dead hands. Once you're in your apartment and you've furnished it elegantly and to your tastes, even if those tastes are a little too gay and colorful for Helen Gurley Brown, you'll want to truly make it sexy. Now, sexy does not mean, as Helen alleges one man suggested, draping sexy lingerie across a chair.
A single girl wants her apartment to be sexy, not necessarily to encourage rape.
No, a sexy apartment is one that subtly conveys that its inhabitant has a personality. Gobs of pictures, check. Travel poster, check. A TV, check. Books, check. A record player, fucking check. A kitchen with lots of spices and cookware, a check. Nice towels and toiletries for your man to use, check. Some sort of conversation piece, check. And pleasant smells wafting, check. This single girl stuff is easy as pie. You're in your apartment. It's sexy, it's elegant, it's chic, it's bussin', it's rad. Maybe you already have a man or two on the Rolodex to privately entertain in it, maybe you don't. But either way, you should throw parties in your abode and invite plenty of single people in order to meet single guys, facilitate the meeting of other single people, and otherwise raise your profile and renown. Dinner parties are great, but cocktail parties are even cheaper. Helen Gurley Brown says the best cocktail parties were thrown by a guy named Mark. For the best cocktail parties, Mark suggested,
give the party in a small space and pack the people in. Never be afraid you've asked too many. Play Romanian gypsy music, interspersed with a little Perez Prado to heighten the intimacy and drama. Serve gobs of weak martinis, which you have made up beforehand and stored in the icebox.
So, I invited as many people as I could to a wild cocktail party held right here in my studio apartment. And that night happened to be Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. The night that LA had hurricane-force Santa Ana winds, and also the entire city caught on fire. So, nobody came. Luckily, I had the pitcher of watered-down martinis to keep me company. Maybe I'll try again in a month. I don't know, though. The idea has sort of lost its magic.
Now, we're going to turn off men for a while and talk about your job. Don't worry, we'll get back to them. What you do from 9 to 5 has everything to do with men anyhow. A job is one way of getting to them. It provides the money with which to dress for them and to dress up your apartment for them. Most importantly, a job gives a single woman something to be. A married woman already is something. She is the banker's wife, the gangster's wife, the wrangler's wife, the strangler's wife, the conductor's wife, streetcar or symphony. Whatever hardships she endures in marriage, one of them is not that she doesn't have a place in life. A single woman is known by what she does rather than whom she belongs to. Gaining and keeping identity through a husband is easier in one important respect than through a job. You can't be summarily fired. A wife can be a lousy housekeeper, indifferent cook, lackluster bedmate, self-centered mother, dull as grime companion, and the law protects her. When she is finally dismissed, the man who served her papers often has to pay her half his salary. Quell severance pay. Nevertheless, while you're waiting to marry, or if you never marry, a job can be your love, your happy pill, your means of finding out who you are and what you can do, your playpen, your family, your entree to a good social life, men and money, the most reliable escape from loneliness when one more romance goes pfft, and your means of participating, not having your nose pressed to the glass.
Work, as I've said, was really the love of Helen Gurley Brown's life, and while I know we would have differing opinions on, say, how much you should pay people for their labor, I kind of agree with Brown and also for Dan on career and self-actualization. I don't love the way jobs are yoked to survival in the way we've decided to organize society, but I do think most people benefit from having some kind of occupation to occupy their time.
You must have a job that interests you, at which you work hard.
I work so incredibly hard. These videos are labors of love. Emphasis on labor. And with my executive function issues, girl, there is always some deadline I'm rushing and failing to meet. I am also a full-time entertainer even outside of YouTube. In fact, I'm the only YouTuber in my circle of content creators that still maintains a job outside of YouTube, which is why my burnout is always so bad. Please sign up for my Patreon. But despite having work and more financial security than I've ever had, I'm still not exactly rolling in it. I do live paycheck to paycheck, which makes it very scary when my hours get cut or gigs dry up. I also, it could be said, spend money on lots of stupid shit, especially if it was aggressively advertised to me on Instagram. So, what financial advice does Helen Gurley Brown give to a single girl like me?
Number 1. Scrimp on what isn't sexy or beautiful or really any fun so you can afford what is. Number 2. Don't spend a sou on anything you don't need. You need iridescent gold eyeshadow, but what about the essence of pine air purifier somebody was selling door to door? Number 3, never pay more when you can pay less. Marvel on shelf paper is Marvel on shelf paper, whether you buy it in a department store or the outlet house, where it is 10 cents a roll cheaper. Number 4, economize on things that would bring you no extra happiness units if you spent twice as much. Are the guests really going to love you that much more and enjoy themselves double when you serve cracked Alaskan crab and jumbo prawns with cocktails instead of raw carrots and cauliflower with a good cheese dip?
Well, thanks for telling me that now, Helen. What the heck am I supposed to do with this freezer full of crab legs? I'll tell you one thing, the fishwife girlies are crying, shitting, and throwing up right now. Okay, so as part of my single girl journey, I'm gonna stop spending money on garbage that isn't sexy or beautiful or fun. I was never really at risk of draining my checking account on Marvel on shelf paper or essence of pine air purifier, but I am trying to cut down on unnecessary expenses and labor exploitation by not ordering food or groceries to be delivered anymore. Apps like Grubhub and DoorDash have so many of us by the throat right now, and it's just such an unnecessary convenience for someone healthy and able-bodied like me. And starting now, I'll stop ordering props for videos from Amazon that I never plan on using again. Like a book of Joseph Stalin's poetry. But laced throughout Sex and the Single Girl and the rest of Helen Gurley Brown's work is another one of her major rules for saving money. Exploit men.
When we got equal rights, here's one I left gift-wrapped. Here's my rule. Never go Dutch treat with a date unless he can't even pay his rent. And are you sure you want him? Or it's a project you promoted that he hates, like the ballet.
In Helen Gurley Brown's world, hell, even in today's world, men largely made more than women. To Helen, men paying for dates, gifts, alcohol, vacations, hell, even your apartment if he's buying your silence, was a sort of reparations or counterbalance to women's unequal status in society. Even as she grew wealthier, I think she saw men paying for women's lunches or cocktails as sort of common courtesy. And the fact that her stepson's girlfriends were paying their equal share of dates with him horrified her. I understand Helen's logic here, and listen, I've let a lot of guys buy me drinks in the past because it makes them feel nice and generous and like a provider for an hour or so. Like, can we all admit that a man buying a lady a drink is as much about his ego as it is about getting free stuff? But, you know, The modern egalitarian single girl in me has kind of always lived by the rule that the person who makes the most money should be the one to buy dinner. Unless, as Helen said, you've strong-armed your date into doing something they don't want to do and it's not your birthday or something. Like, if I'm making a man come with me to a Lay Faye concert, I'll buy the tickets. And if he makes more than me, he better be the one putting down his credit card for the bar tab. So I decided to integrate this aspect of Helen Gurley Brown's financial advice into my life by only dating men who make more than me. But all of the men I know are improv comedy nerds, a demographic that largely sleeps on mattresses on the floor, though there are a few trust funds sprinkled in there. So to improve my chances of meeting a high-value man, a term I just came up with on my own, by the way, I decided to go to a bar in a rich part of town and sit and order tap water until a rich man approaches and buys me a drink. So I was asked to leave because they actually needed that booth for people who are gonna buy things. So I think I'm gonna just try again tomorrow, or I don't know, maybe try a different bar or something.
Your figure can't harbor an ounce of baby fat. It never looked good on anybody but babies.
Okay, so I'm sure I put some kind of a content warning at the top of the video, but just in case you or I somehow missed it, this is another opportunity to turn off the video or skip to the time code I placed somewhere on the screen. If you would like to avoid eating disorder content, please do one of those two things now, because Helen Gurley Brown's relationship with food and bodies was what they refer to in the DSM-5 as very bad and fucked up. And just a heads up that for the next couple of sections, I will be avoiding saying any numbers or measurements at my discretion, because restrictive eating disorders in particular have a very competitive element to them, and I do not want to encourage or promote any disordered eating on my channel. Helen Gurley Brown dodged anorexia rumors her entire career, and toward the end of her life even conceded that maybe she did have a touch of the orexia, but wasn't that a good thing because it kept her thin? And you know what? Helen lived to the ripe old age of 90 and was kind of a type A person who felt she needed to rigidly control every aspect of her life, so I'll let her have her comfort mental illness. She never seemed to suffer any extreme physical or emotional consequences as a result of her relationship with food, at least publicly. The advice Helen Gurley Brown gives in Sex and the Single Girl is not only wildly fatphobic, but sometimes just bizarre. She describes herself as a health nut, despite the fact that the infamously unhealthy crash I will be subjecting myself to later on in the video is a torment of her own invention. She recommends a number of vintage diet and exercise books with titles like Stop Dieting, Start Losing, the famous Cottage Cheese Low-Calorie book by Ruth West, Stay Young and Vital by Rob Cummings, and Let's Eat Right to Keep Fit by Adele Davis, who she describes as a firebrand of food circles and infuriates doctors. Doctors hate this one weird trick, and it's just starvation. She generally recommends a high-protein diet of at least 51 grams of protein a day, consisting of whole foods and limited processed carbs, and to
Eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, supper like a pauper. Except on a date, not the other way around.
And that's fine. It's all pretty basic general advice that we've all heard about a million times. But she also recommends something called a Serenity cocktail, a concoction allegedly prescribed to her by a woman named Gladys Lindbergh, who ran a franchise of health food stores around the Los Angeles area throughout the 20th century.
Gladys Lindbergh's Serenity Cocktail. Put into a blender, 1/2 cup chunk pineapple, 2 tablespoons soybean oil, 1 teaspoon calcium lactate from a druggist or health food store, 1 teaspoon vanilla, 1 cup milk, preferably raw certified. Start motor and add 1/2 cup powdered skim milk, not instant, and 1/2 tablespoon brewer's yeast or dried liver powder from a drug or health food store. When well blended, add mixture to remainder of quart of milk. Banana, frozen orange juice, berries, or other fruit may be used instead of pineapple. Gradually increase the yeast or liver powder from 1/2 tablespoon to 1 or 2 tablespoons. Take a pint of Serenity to work every day in a thermos inside an ice cream bag to keep it cold. 35 grams of protein right there. Have half mid-morning, half mid-afternoon. A jar of yogurt or a wedge of cheese could be lunch. Of course, you'll have to find something else to do during lunch hour. What about a juicy novel or a nap?
Raw milk and brewer's yeast? What do you mean take a pint to work? Girl, I will be shitting. If I break the toilet, they won't let me come back. Also, where the fuck am I supposed to get calcium lactate? Oh, you can just get it on Amazon. Okay, well, let me try it. Without the raw milk, though. This video already has alcorexia in it. I don't need botulism, too. Okay, here we go. Yummy, yummy. It sure is white. Okay. Oh, God. It smells like milk. Okay. Okay, it kind of has the flavor of like cereal milk. It smells like a cereal too. What does it smell like? Like a little bit like Kix? Is that what it was called? The little round things? A little bit like that. I guess if you do like a cereal milk flavor, this is for you. I'm not really a big milk fan myself. Also, while I was making, I used dry active yeast, which I'm just now realizing might be different from brewer's yeast. So I might have made it wrong, and I don't know what that means for my insides. But bottoms up, I guess. Oh, it's got like a foam on the top. That's really not for me. Let me make sure I put this in frame. You're gonna want to see that. Actually, this is an even better place for it. Right here, right where it shines. Okay, so I guess lunch today is just this and a piece of cheese. Seems kind of miserable, and I don't have a nice big dinner to look forward to because we're not doing that anymore. But I guess this is what being a single girl is all about.
Keep your lip zipped. If you decide to go the health route, don't talk about it on dates. Think how cleverly Dracula concealed his vampire hood. Quietly order the least gooped up entree on the menu, skip rolls and butter, leave the fried potatoes on your plate. You'll soon be revolted by anything greasy or fried anyway. Eat your baked potato without tons of butter or sour cream. Have melon instead of 7-layer Napoleon. Nobody's even going to suspect you for the health fiend you are.
Oh, good. So we're being secretive about our eating habits. That's so comforting.
Don't be any nuttier than you have to. Don't fret if you eat impure concoctions occasionally. If you're food-wise most of the time, you'll stay more than radiant.
Finally, a healthy, realistic attitude toward dieting.
If you do occasionally eat a forbidden goodie, which you almost certainly will at dinner parties, it will seem kind of alien to you. Like a friend you used to have everything in common with, but haven't anymore. And if you don't get chummy again, you can fly right back to safe, sane eating and be perfectly happy.
Oh.
Fatties never give skinnies credit for any willpower. They prefer to assume you're one of the freaks. Well, I diet every day of my life by willfully selecting health foods. Cookie-holics, like alcoholics, are only arrested, never cured.
Oh. But for Helen Gurley Brown, restrictive eating was not enough. She was a proponent of consistent, moderate exercise. She recommended even just a few minutes first thing in the morning. Again, very common, sensible advice we've all heard before. But once again, she undercuts her sensible advice by, telling a joke.
A woman goes to her doctor for a checkup. He can find nothing wrong. He says, "Will you please tell me what you do every day from the time you wake up in the morning till the time you go to bed at night?" "Certainly," she says. "I turn off the alarm, get out of bed, go to the bathroom, wash my face, throw up, brush my teeth, take a shower." "Just a minute," he says. "Will you repeat that?" "Sure," she says. "I turn off the alarm, get up, go to the bathroom, wash my face, throw up, brush my teeth, take a shower." "Young woman," he says, "do you mean to tell me that every single morning of your life you throw up after you wash your face?" "Sure," she says. "Doesn't everybody?" That's how morning exercise has to be. So automatic you could do it in your sleep, and you do, usually.
Helen, honey, are you okay? That's how morning exercise should be. Compulsive and concerning. Speaking of concerning, let's spend the next 48 hours consuming nothing but wine and eggs.
If you'd like to crash away pounds in 2 days, here is a diet men like. Invite one to join you. Follow this plan only 2 days, then back to sanity. Breakfast, 1 egg, any style, no butter, 1 glass white wine. Lunch, 2 eggs, any style, 2 glasses white wine. Dinner, 1 steak, finish the bottle of white wine. This crash diet went semi-viral several years ago. People shared it all over social media. Vice journalists and bloggers tried it and wrote about it for clicks, like I'm doing now. But every time people talked about it, it was framed like, weren't people in the 70s kooky? Weren't they silly and naive, but also sort of glamorous? Oh, look, it's a diet I could stick to. And no, you can't. And no, they weren't. First of all, this diet is from the early 1960s, not the 1970s. It was reprinted in Vogue in the 70s, and it wasn't even printed correctly. The Vogue version mentions black coffee, and Helen Gurley Brown's original wine and egg diet mentions no such thing. Secondly, no, this is not evidence of our elders being quirky and nutritionally naive. This is one woman who was so adept at hiding her troubling relationship with food that she found a way to crash diet even when entertaining a rich alcoholic. And I both commend and fear her for that. And yet, I know the context. I know the troubling extent of her food issues and the limitations she imposed upon herself, body and soul, as a self-described realist living under patriarchy. Things that all the lifestyle writers never bothered to investigate. I should know better. I do know better. And yet, here I am, standing in the checkout line at my grocery store with a carton of eggs, 2 steaks, a can of Pam cooking spray, and 2 bottles of Sauvignon Blanc. I'm a vegetarian and a coffee drinker, but I'll be setting both of those things aside for 2 days to follow Helen's prescription exactly. She didn't say how to prepare any of the eggs or steak, so I will either be boiling or pan frying with Pam, which has 0 calories and which would have been available to Helen Gurley Brown in 1962. And so begins the most anticipated— oh my God, $85? Are you fucking kidding me? And so begins the most anticipated chapter in my journey to becoming a single girl. I began the first day of my wine and egg journey with some apprehension.
Okay, I can't put this off any longer. I was like having nightmares all last night because I'm like so nervous about doing this, but Now I've got to do my breakfast. I've got to eat my breakfast, which is an egg and a glass of wine. I did a really shit job of peeling this egg, and then I put way too much paprika on it. Bon appetit.
I'd never been wine drunk quite that early in the morning and with quite so little food in my tummy, so I limited myself to small tasks I could accomplish close to home without needing to drive anywhere, and I struggled to accomplish even those. Helen herself recommends choosing a weekend to follow the diet, as sufficient nutrition is here, but you do get fuzzy. So it's actually fine and normal and expected that I'm a little out of sorts. It's all part of the process of transitioning from single girl, lowercase, into single girl, proper noun. Fuzzy or not, I do need to get a workout in because as a single girl, my morning exercise has to be so automatic I can do it in my sleep. Or drunk and hungry.
Okay, I'm going to the post office. And then I'm gonna go for a run. I'm so sleepy. It turns out, like, when you wake up and the very first thing you do in the morning is drink a glass of wine, you just want to go back to bed.
But a single girl doesn't go back to bed. She gets her workout in, even if it means she's gotta evacuate some of her breakfast wine and egg into the neighbor's cacti. By midday, my face was noticeably puffy, I was tired, and I felt hideously nauseous. But that's okay. It's all part of the process. In fact, it was a good thing. Career-minded single girls like me never allow ourselves time off. The haze that settled on my brain from this restrictive diet was actually a means of forcing myself to take some time just for me. To sit down and read a book. To play my favorite video game.
This is the only thing that makes sense to me anymore. Okay, do you want to see something really unhinged? I only have one save file. I've never started a second one. I'm afraid. So I'm on year 6, and I'm a millionaire.
And so what if I was too exhausted and nauseated to find any joy in these once pleasurable hobbies? It's lunchtime now anyway.
Here's lunch. 2 eggs this time. I cut them in half so it feels like there's more. And I'm supposed to have 2 glasses of wine, so I will be refilling this glass after I drink what's there.
After a delicious lunch of egg, I reclined winsomely on my bed. And eventually I put on some calming music and took a nice, long nap.
Okay, I just woke up. I put on oldies playing in another room and it's raining and basically just slept away the whole afternoon. And now I feel better. And I think it's time for a steak dinner.
And something about the rain and those oldies and the gentle fog of tipsiness and mild starvation brought me this sweet sense of nostalgia. And it was then that I felt I had the gumption and the drive of a true single girl to get all dolled up with literally nowhere to go and to eat my Pam-fried steak and drink my dry white wine in resplendent glamour. I was beginning to enjoy this a little, and only partly because it was halfway over. Day 2 started a lot better. My liver processed all of the alcohol and my face wasn't as puffy anymore. I was feeling a lot more chipper, less cynical, and more feminine. I had lost some weight and reduced my measurements, which is good. Part of being sexy is taking up as little space as possible so that when you get married, you can slip in and out of rooms and almost no one notices. And look, I chopped up my hard-boiled egg so it felt like I had more to eat.
Cheers to day 2.
I had readied myself first thing for my morning exercise, but my run was delayed temporarily by violent, painful diarrhea, an unexpected consequence of the diet. But Helen Gurley Brown was a woman of many surprises, and so it seems is this crash. I did not expect a diet consisting of no coffee or fiber to have this effect on my bowels, and yet there I was, sitting on the toilet curled into a fetal position. By 9:30, I'd made it out on another run, and though my legs felt like they were filled with cement, I persevered.
This is so bad. I'm getting like winded after like 5 minutes of running. My carbohydrate stores are just like fully depleted. This is not how you're meant to live. This is so bad. Oh my God. It's a truck with pictures of food on it. And some of the food is vegetables. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, like standard like running, not advice, but like rule of thumb is that like the first 2 miles lie to you. So now I'm about a mile in and I am feeling more settled. Like I'm a little bit more okay. The audio on this is probably gonna be garbage because I'm using my headphones. I'm out for a run right now and it's good morning. It's going very poorly. I am weak and sick to my stomach and the morale is very low. It's bad, but I'm really looking forward to broccoli and an apple. I think I'm gonna start my day tomorrow with an apple. I'm just like imagining crunching down into a big juicy apple.
It's so fucked up that I was placing my my order earlier today for groceries. I'm like, okay, so I don't remember what I said I wanted last night, but what I do need is like a bushel of apples and like a basket of broccoli. And I'm just gonna sit with that, especially a cold apple. Ugh.
Okay, like the way our minds are connected, like Lindsay Lohan in I Know Who Killed Me. Like, you are healing my suffering and my cravings, and that's so crazy.
Not both of us waking up on like opposite sides of the world being like, I'm fat, apples. When we finally get rich and we get on a private plane to go on vacation and we bring our pet horse, Apples, and it crashes and we have to start a new society and we eventually have to eat him, it's going to be so funny when we said we had to eat apples.
Like, I never crave apples. I'm not a fucking horse. It's just like, go 24 hours without any fiber, and your body is like, please. Okay, also the way our brains both went, apple, horse.
What did you eat on the island? They'll ask, and we'll be like, apples. And they'll be like, there were apples on the island. And we'll be like, we brought him with us. And they'll be like, who? And we'll be like, apples.
What a cute little Donner Party moment for us. What a cute little Yellow Jackets moment. What a cute little Jeffrey Dahmer.
My favorite parties: pool, pizza, and dog.
And when I returned home, I remembered the wise words of Helen Gurley Brown. You do need a quiet, private, personal aggression, a refusal to take singleness lying down. Yeah, that's me. I'm not just a girl. I'm a single girl. And I can make an effort to look cute even when no one is around to see it, even when my insides are rebelling against me. So I put on my prettiest pajamas, set my hair in rollers, and slapped on a charming red lip color to clean the house. I can keep a good house better than a wife, even with my fancy career and low blood sugar, because that's just part of being sexy and single. By midday, I was feeling downright chipper.
Scrambled eggs for my 2 eggs lunch, and I topped it with a little bit of Crystal hot sauce. That's 0 calories. I also put in, salt and pepper. I'm feeling kind of optimistic right now. A, because of the cute little change of pace, scrambled eggs instead of hard-boiled, and also because this is the last egg meal. This is the last one. We are at meal 5 of 6. No more eggs after this. And then the next meal after that is gonna be normal! Yeah! Hey. Hey, Holly. You look a little sleepy. Are you a little sleepy? Are you a little sleepy? Have you been doing a little of the wine and egg diet? You've been whining and egging? You taking after your mommy? Yeah? Are you proud of me? Like the lengths to which I will go to make sure that there's still cat food in
in your spiky little mouth. Hey, look at me when I'm talking to you. Hey. Oh, you thought I was gonna give you food, didn't you? Okay, well. What's that on the floor behind you? I fucking vacuumed today, what?
After lunch, I decided to recline in some comely position and read a juicy novel, just like Helen might. This one was very juicy indeed. It's about mental illness. But all that thinking took it out of me pretty quickly, and I decided to go for another nap. Being a single girl is easiest when you're unconscious. This nap was shorter than my nap from the day before, in part because my body was adjusting to its new, sexy physiognomy, and in part because I very suddenly needed to use the toilet again.
Oh hey, I'm back on the toilet. Things I have craved today. Apples, broccoli, orange juice. That's all.
After that, I decided to change out of my silk pajamas and into proper clothes for dinner time, because I wanted to put on something fetching, and not because I shit myself after spending more than 36 hours consuming nothing but animal products and alcohol. By 4:30, I was starving, so I decided to have an early dinner and go to bed. The earlier the dinner and the bedtime, the sooner I'd get to the following day when I'd be sufficiently cleansed and ready to start my new life as a single girl, but with caffeine and vegetables this time. And apples. God, apples. Why was I craving apples? Maybe a half cup of wild rice just to fill in the gaps a little bit so that my stomach doesn't constantly feel like it's eating itself. Oh, dinner's ready. And there I was, the finish line in sight, masticating through another 8 ounces of rare steak. It had been so long since I'd had steak. I'd forgotten just how long it takes to get it from plate to stomach. So much slicing and sawing and chewing and effort before you feel it slide down your throat and into your panging stomach. So much digesting and diluting before its fats and proteins are dissolved and distributed among the tissues of your flesh and organs, with so little left to traverse northward to provide precious nutrients to my addled, rattled, idle brain. Though steak and wine both entered my body through the same portal, wine, it seemed, had always found a faster route to the control tower in that North Pole. I was nearly done with my food for the challenge, but I still had half an entire bottle of white wine until completion. A volume that seemed almost impossible to me now. I picked my favorite Sauvignon Blanc to drink, but now it sat on my tongue at once bitter and sickly sweet like radiator fluid. It sloshed in my tummy and in my mind, and if I didn't time every sip exactly right, an entire day's worth of the only food I was allowed would end up splattered across my rug like a Jackson Pollock. I wondered what the point of all this was. Clicks? Yes. Likes? Of course. Subscribes? Absolutely. But in the grand scheme of things, in my imagination, this stupid crash diet was becoming the avatar for all the stupid, pointless things society encourages in women. The things that we hate or that bore us, that we mock in the company of other women and still subject ourselves to, dyeing our hair and waxing our assholes and making ourselves smaller here and bigger there. The hours spent agonizing at the mirror, molding ourselves into whatever shape a woman is supposed to be this week. The little time and money-consuming rituals that promise, if you perform them correctly and with enough consistency, happiness somewhere down the line. But instead, they rob you of the mental and physical energy to do any of the things that really make you happy. Or like with this wine, my favorite white wine that I can no longer bring myself to drink, it makes you fearful or resentful of things you once loved. And for what? In the effort to make my body smaller, I'd also made my world smaller. Reduced to 4 walls, a few blocks of fresh air, and plenty of boredom and malaise. And craving. Don't forget craving. Fuck, I would kill for an apple. This isn't what Helen Gurley Brown would want for me. After all, didn't she say, you don't have to do anything. You're not too fat, too thin, too tall, too small, too dumb, or too myopic. She wouldn't approve of my living like this. Stuck at home, more trapped and more boring than any of the post-war housewives she so disdained. She'd tell me to do what I want, and to do it fabulously. Besides, a half a bottle of white wine has got to be more fucking calories and carbs than a goddamned scrumptious, juicy, crunchy, nourishing apple.
Oh, fuck, that's good. Oh, fuck yeah.
In The Feminine Mystique, there's this long section where Betty Friedan contrasts short stories from 1930s women's magazines to magazine stories from the 1950s. The example she gave from the 1930s boasted independent and headstrong heroines with careers and personal objectives unburdened with a man. The example she gave from the 1950s featured infantile ingenues who either got married or were married, and whose beau, husband, or son was central to their narrative. Her point was obviously to illustrate the cultural shift that had occurred when it came to the idealized pre-war and post-war American woman. Though we think of feminism as a sort of continuity consisting of waves, the first wave and the fight for women's suffrage, the second wave and the fight for further equality inside and outside of the home, and the nebulous third wave of intersectional and sex-positive feminism, each surge of feminist progress is met with a period of pronounced backlash. And I would be far from the first person to point out that the meteoric rise of the trad wife aesthetic seems to be an almost direct response to feminism's Me Too era. It is an aesthetic that appeals to women specifically because it comes from women. I'm not sure if Estee Williams and Nara Smith will ever become the kind of overt political threat to feminism that Phyllis Schlafly and Anita Bryant posed, but their chilling effect is real. Maintaining real political will behind dismantling any systemic injustice, much less something as all-encompassing as patriarchy, is hard. And sometimes it is alluring, this idea of giving up and playing the hand that was dealt to you from a deck that was stacked. We imagine living a life of more simplicity, if a little less possibility, safe within our sphere of baked pies and bare feet. That is, until we remember that guy our friend dumped last week after he punched a hole in the wall. The agony from the polycystic ovary syndrome when we go off birth control. Our friend who just started hormone replacement therapy. And that guy who got barred from the comedy clubs for just being a little bit too handsy. And we remember what all that political struggle was there for in the first place. It's not just the big things, the voting and the abortion. Remember abortion? It's all the little things we've said we will no longer tolerate because we are more than just women. We are human. And we deserve that part of ourselves to be recognized first. Our humanity. Helen Gurley Brown's admitted realist complacency under patriarchy sometimes got her labeled as an anti-feminist by some of her second-wave peers, like Friedan. But I don't think it's accurate or fair to her legacy to paint her as an anti-feminist or a proto-trad wife type or a frivolous, tepid choice feminist. Helen Gurley Brown was in a category of her own.
She maintained her commitment to and campaigned for the advancement of women as a socio-political group her entire life, and toward the end of it, even credited the feminists far to her political left with doing the most important and vital work. She marched, she contributed, she wrote opinion pieces, she fought with pen and wallet, just also while editing a magazine with articles on how to give him the best blowjob of his life. And I think that's beautiful and worthy of respect. As to her flaws, the limits in Helen Gurley Brown's activism and imagination, I see them as reminders to not close ourselves off to what is possible. In Sex and the Single Girl, she advised an audience of women the edges of whose dreams only stretched to being sexually liberated secretaries. A generation later, she'd be editing a magazine for women who just elected the first woman president. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm being told this isn't the case? Okay, well, finally in 2024, we'd elect the first woman president. I'm sorry. That's wrong again? Okay, well, we got a Barbie movie that I've been told is very feminist. So keep fighting the good fight, sisters. Someday we'll elect a woman president. And then the deep state will abolish the presidency before she can take office, and the dream of the global feminist anarcho-proletariat will finally be complete. So, obviously, I think a lot of Helen's advice is out of date. I think a lot of it is kind of obvious self-help filler. And I think a few of her little nuggets of wisdom are actually just insane. But there are good reminders in there for even the most curmudgeonly of cynics, and I will interpret them for you here. Take an interest in people, not just the object of your romantic affections either. Your friends, your coworkers, your community. Being interested makes you interesting. Also, a lot of our modern misery stems from our increasingly atomized and isolated society, so it's important for everyone to build connections where they can. Be shameless. Be it your looks, your education, your number of subscribers on YouTube, or whatever embarrassing sexual kink you've been burying deep, deep down. Stop feeling guilt and shame about it. You have to let go of your hang-ups so that you can be more present for yourself and for the world around you. You know that community I just mentioned? Do it for them. When you accept yourself with all your foibles, you will be able to accept other people too. And they will be happier to be near you. Big order, but you can fill it. Carpe that diem. Nothing is certain. Don't wait until things are perfect to attempt that project. Take that trip, fall in love, and show the people you care about that you do, in fact, care. Your life is happening now. And it might not be tomorrow, so just shut up and do it, you whiny baby. Live glamorously. Glamour can mean something different to everyone, but try to live as many of your days as possible like they're the shiny, thrilling good ones. Even if it's just another laundry day, do it wearing falsies and holding a cigarette if you have to. Even if you don't smoke, it looks cunty as hell. Be a drag queen. Enjoy the journey. Lots of fairy tales don't come true, but those storylines usually end up on the cutting room floor. So don't wait for happily ever after to start enjoying yourself. Fulfillment isn't something that only comes when you're skinny enough or rich enough or finally married to a 6'5" well-hung daddy. Don't endgame your life. The journey really is a bigger deal than the destination. You may marry or you may not. In today's world, that is no longer the big question for women. Those who glom onto men so that they can collapse with relief, spend the rest of their days shining up their status symbol, and figure they never have to reach, stretch, learn, grow, face dragons, or make a living again, are the ones to be pitied. They, in my opinion, are the unfulfilled ones. You, my friend, if you work at it, can be envied the rich, full life possible for the single woman today. It's a good show. Enjoy it from wherever you are, whether it's 2 in the balcony or 1 on the aisle. Don't miss any of it. Live a good life. The good life in any way you can. Because the jury's out, but we probably only get one chance at all that pain and joy. 1 chance to make an impact. 1 chance to eat apples and make art and feel the sun on our face, the creak of our joints, to hear the laughter of our best friends. 1 chance to be remembered. Enjoy it while it's happening. Okay, actually all of that still feels kind of meaningless when I put it like that, but it does sound nice. If I got anything concrete from this book, it's steal from men, try to get more protein, and wear your pretty dresses more. Also, consuming nothing but wine, steak, and eggs for 2 days straight feels bad, and probably is bad. And I couldn't help but wonder, wasn't that the lesson second wave feminists were trying to teach us all along? The end.